This is part 7 of rebuilding a vintage open steam launch, and it's all about repairing the steam tap, changing the 10BA nuts and bolts, making a superheater coil and fitting the exhaust pipe. This is a steam tap in its original state. And if you look at the bottom part of the tap where it meets the bush, you can see how badly damaged the hexagon part is. So I machined this away and re-silver soldered a new one on. And now it looks a good bit better, and you can't really tell it's been repaired. So over now to more 10BA bolt fixings. I removed the 10BA nuts from all the bolts around this top part of the boiler, because I wasn't happy with the appearance of the screw heads. As I mentioned in the last episode, I am thinking about riveting this, well, for at least a few milliseconds anyway. But the more I looked at it from the inside, the more I realised how risky it would be to rivet this. The problem is the bottom part, the part that fits onto the boiler. It's made from very thin copper. It took me quite a long time to taper the internal part of the main tube, and this was an attempt to give the tube a better purchase on the very thin flange that it's mounted to. So I had to go for plan B really. It's the safest method, and I think it's going to look okay. So to make the job easier, I used the full length 10BA bolts, put them through one at a time and chopped off the thread. And now I'm using the little drum sander to clean off the threads so that they're not sharp and they're all the same distance from the nut, and I think it looks okay, very steam engine like. So I won't just sit here looking at it, I'll remove the tap and carry on with the job. And the next job in question is to fit a superheater coil. The superheater coil is going to fit partly in the vertical column and partly just underneath the base. So what I need to do first is measure the distance between the two bushes, and then I need to find a suitable mandrel, I've found one, an old flywheel, to allow me to bend the 3/16 copper pipe around it. So if you watch this clip you get the idea what I'm actually doing. I'm making a coil of copper tubing. And this copper tubing has to fit between the two bushes on the boiler, which of course now it does. The next part of the job is to temporarily fit the superheater coil in place with the two ends of the copper piping protruding from the two holes in the vertical column. In this clip I'm using a felt tip pen to mark where the two pieces of tube exit the central column, and I'm going to cut the tube at this point, so it looks like this. And then I'm going to silver solder some 5/16 by 32 threads per inch unions on the end. And here it is. I haven't shown the silver soldering process, I've done lots of videos about that. One of the first tutorial videos I ever did is called Silver Soldering for Beginners. With the superheater coil in place and the fittings protruding from the central column, the first thing to do is to make the whole thing rigid. So what I'm doing here is just fitting some temporary nuts on the end of the fittings. And now the superheater coil is quite rigid, I can manipulate it and bend it to the correct shape. The original exhaust pipe just poked up the chimney like this. It wasn't held in place, obviously it was at the engine end, but not at the chimney end. But really it's only 3/16 pipe, and for an engine of this cylinder bore and stroke, I think that 3/16 pipe for an exhaust is a bit on the small side. So I've very carefully drilled a 3/8 of an inch diameter hole in the central column. And through this hole I can mount a suitable steam union which is 3/8 by 32 threads per inch. Then I bent a piece of 1/4 inch pipe and silver soldered it to the fitting after drilling out the fitting to take the diameter of the 1/4 inch pipe. And then a simple nut that I made on the lathe, and the whole thing is quite solid. This is the final link in the chain of the exhaust. The engine's exhaust will first of all go through a condenser oil trap, and this will catch all the oil droplets which otherwise would find their way onto the surface of the lake, which looks very pretty, but it's not very good for the wildlife. Anyone sailing a model steamboat must have a condenser oil trap fitted. So I'm manipulating this coil, that means carefully bending it without breaking anything. I don't want the coils bunched tightly together, I need a good surface area for the heat of the fire to make the steam really hot. So the wet steam comes out of this tap and it goes into the superheater, and then from the superheater to the engine. This clip shows me fitting a union nut to the steam engine. And from this exhaust outlet, it will go to the condenser oil trap and then up the pipe that you just seen me fit. The condenser oil trap will be somewhere near the engine, and it's going to be quite a tight fit. The exhaust condenser can't be too far away from the engine, otherwise the steam will cool too much, and then the condenser will fill up with water too frequently. For this episode, that's about it for the mechanics, and now it's painting time. This is some paint that I frequently use for painting firebox areas, parts of a steam engine boiler that get a little hotter than usual. It's a bit gloopy to paint on, but it tends to level off by the time it's dried. There's not a lot I can say about this, I'm just going to shut up. I could talk about Barco spanners, but I think I've exhausted that for the moment. I think I'll just play some gentle, soothing painting music, so thanks for watching and I hope you found it useful.